What I want to get into is like, I want to go back because I don't even know this, right? Because we usually just have conversation about business and stuff. But where did it start? Like, when did you get the mindset? How did it develop as a child that, hey, I'm going to play baseball at the highest level possible, at the best program probably in the country? Like, what mindset and work ethic allowed you to reach that level of success?
That's a great question, Mark. And a lot of times people don't realize the dark underbelly that success has. When I was younger, I wasn't the best socially, still not the best socially, but I've gotten better over time. Awkward around girls, wasn't in the popular group though, on the periphery of it. I knew everybody. I wasn't like a
Yeah.
dork, but I just didn't recognize people's emotions very well. I didn't figure that out until years after I got done playing baseball and I was struggling in a sales role. And so, I had, without having been diagnosed, I had some autistic features. Probably wouldn't have landed me on the autism spectrum, but probably was a little bit close for comfort. And so it was always harder for me to get the respect from my peers that I thought I deserved when I was a teenager and child. And I didn't really know how to fix that because when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, you don't have the self awareness to realize, like, hey, the reason why I'm not popular is because I don't understand people's emotions, or I don't understand how to talk to girls. My assumption always was I'm just not worth enough. Probably had to do with, maybe how I was raised. I don't know. But my assumption was if I'm not getting what I want, it's because I'm not good enough. And so that was the starting point for putting work into becoming the best athlete I could possibly be. A lot of elite athletes who had, social development issues growing up, if you want to call what I had that, worked as hard as they did because they just wanted to have respect from their peer group. Michael Phelps is a example that I've heard from. I went to college with many of his high school classmates who just said the guy was a loser. And, because he didn't have friends, he had the pool. And, because he didn't have the dopamine that other kids his age would have from, going on dates, kissing girls. He was just, able to work really, really hard in the pool. And I don't know that I had that exactly, but it wasn't that far off. And so I was able to put hours and hours every day after school into being the best athlete I could possibly be, being the best baseball player I could possibly be. And so I went from somebody who wasn't really on any college coach's radar my freshman or sophomore year of high school to becoming a lot better, becoming someone who had major league speed, becoming somebody who had a major league arm, becoming somebody who had contact ability to hit at a high level. And then I went from not being recruited by major schools to, having several major elite academic and baseball schools knocking on my front door, asking to have dinner with me and my family, and ultimately offering me scholarships. Now, the other thing about success is that Vanderbilt wasn't the top school in the country that everybody wanted to go to when I was in high school. A lot of times you have to join a winning party when it's on the ascent. Otherwise, they would overlook you if they were already number one and you're not elite in your recruiting class. And so Vanderbilt was a mid-tier SEC school when I was in high school. They were an elite academic institution, but they were a mid-tier SEC school with a new coach who was very charismatic, tremendous at sales, tremendous at recruiting, tremendous at making you feel good and feel part of a winning tradition. And I just remember this coach was after me more than any other coach that summer after my junior year, which at the time was when kids got recruited to play college baseball. And so I wanted to go to Stanford when I was in high school. The Stanford coach showed interest. He showed up to my front door, but nobody showed interest the way Coach Bakich, now at Clemson, but Coach Bakich, the recruiting coordinator at Vanderbilt at the time, and Coach Corbin, still the head coach at Vanderbilt at the time, showed in me. And so they made me feel like I had an opportunity with Vanderbilt. I took my official visit. The vibe at Vanderbilt was nothing I had ever seen until several years later when I went on Eventbrite's floor as they were a Series B startup just raised at a $20 million or $40 million valuation and, had a 10X or 20X run up ahead of them. Those were the two times where I went into a situation and I thought something is special about this place. Everybody seems to be working towards a common vision. They're working hard, but they have fun working hard. They enjoy each other's presence. There's camaraderie that is being developed in the trenches. And so I really saw that when I took my recruiting trip in the fall of 2003, to the point where to the point where I committed to Vanderbilt over Stanford. They did give me a better scholarship offer. And when I joined them, the second year I was there, we had the #1 recruiting class in the country. And so guys like Pedro Alvarez, guys like Ryan Flaherty, guys like Mike Miner joined guys like David Price, who was in my recruiting class. And so this wasn't a ready-made product that I committed to when I was in high school. It was just a kid who was a little bit socially awkward, who wanted to prove his place in the world, who worked tirelessly to get an opportunity. And then the best opportunity that I got ended up being a rocket ship, where we ended up winning the SEC my junior year. And that was never really something that many people saw likely at the time that I signed my letter of intent.
That's astounding. But I want to go back. When you say hours of work after school, what does that mean? Is that like practicing with the team? Is that training on your own? Is that what does that mean? Like when you say you got done with school and then you got to work? Because I mean, we've talked about my similar story. I would train, weight room would be 1:30 to 2:30 for the team. And I'd stay with Coach Miles and Leon Hatton, two guys. One is a coach, one was ice linebacker. We trained for another 2 hours, and then we'd go run with the high school basketball team. Like we do their conditioning. So when you say you train for hours, what does that mean?
It was almost always on my own. In fact, I didn't like it when the season started and I had to follow somebody else's program, because it was never hard enough and it was always just getting in the way of what I wanted to do. So training on my own, for the most part, would be in the fall and the winter. And that would mean I'd get out of school at 2:10, 2:15. I would maybe run for 45 minutes. I did a decent amount of distance running at the time because I didn't know any better, but I also did sprints. I also did plyometric work. And then I would spend maybe a couple hours doing hitting or ground balls. And then I would go lift weights for about an hour and a half. And so the biggest transformation I had was my sophomore year in high school, where I went from sitting the bench the final tournament of my freshman summer to being an elite player on that travel team. Sitting the bench was kind of humiliating for me because, I spent the whole year playing, but I wasn't really that good. I didn't hit that well. I wasn't that physical. I wasn't that fast. I had a good glove, but, the coaches had kind of moved on from me at that point, and they wanted to give other people some opportunities. And whether that happened or not, I was going to work as hard as I possibly could to be the best athlete I could possibly be. And so that meant about 4 hours after high school every day, from about 2:15 to about 6:15. I was doing all the things that I mentioned. I was running, I was lifting, I was hitting, I was taking ground balls. And then I would come home and I would eat dinner and I would do my homework, and then I would go to bed and I would do it again the next day. And so, that was probably 5 or 6 days a week. Definitely after every school day, I was doing that, and probably some of the weekend days where the weight room wasn't open and I didn't have a gym membership outside of my high school. So all of this was, fortunately able to be done at my high school. It didn't require that I have a car. It didn't require that I have a gym membership. It just required that I could work hard on my own. And in the case of taking ground balls, or in the case of hitting in a batting cage, it required that I had a friend, which I was fortunate enough to, who was willing to put in similar work where we could throw to each other and hit to each other. And so, all in, it was probably 20 to 24 hours a week. As a sophomore in high school, in addition to the academic load that I had where I got straight A's. And so that was hard. I'm not going to pretend that anybody else in my high school was doing that. Did I need to do that much? In retrospect, knowing what I know now, probably not. I probably could have made similar leaps if I did 2/3 of the amount. But even if I did 2/3 of the amount, that was probably twice what anybody else on my team was doing. And if I simply relied on my coaches to create a game plan for me and followed along that game plan, it wouldn't have been good enough.
Boom!